for instance, they like to read like this book called Captain Underpants. That's this novel that's turned into a movie now. And I let them know that is fiction. It's not real. You know, it's not based on a real story, whereas a nonfiction is actually a story about someone or something. In fact, we were watching, what was the name of the movie? The Zookeeper's Wife. It's a real story. So I let them know that this movie is based on something that actually happened. It's nonfiction. I let them know that you know, it actually, all this stuff happened. And maybe, you know, they have some fillers in the movie, but all the events of this actually happened. This happened during, or at the beginning and during the Holocaust. And then they're like, oh, well, what's the Holocaust? So then I went into explaining to them about what the Holocaust was and how it affected a lot of people then, and that it was genocide. And then there was another word that we came out with. It was another word that they weren't familiar with. Then they learned about, I told them about genocide, where that means that there's a race or a culture of people who wanted to eliminate, it's another word that we did, want to eliminate or wipe out, you know, the Jews, you know, then. And they, if it weren't for this lady and her husband that owned this zoo, they wouldn't have saved all those hundreds of people. They saved like 300 people, you know, those were lives that they saved. But I let them know that story is nonfiction, whereas, and it's a book also for that. And then there's a book for Captain Underpants, and then there's a movie for that. And I let them know they turned this book into a movie, but it's also fiction, it's not real. So they understand, you know, at first they were a little confused between the word fiction and nonfiction, because they were like, well, that means no. And I was like, that's not what that means in this case, though. So they've learned, I guess that's how they learned to remember the fiction versus nonfiction. So now, even watching television, they'll say, oh, that commercial, that's fiction. That's a fiction commercial. That's a fiction commercial. You know? So they even use fiction versus nonfiction just in everyday talking instead of saying real and not real.